Hi, welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's 10 least favorite moments of Season 4 of Game of Thrones. I'll also be doing another video where I do my top 20 favorite moments of Game of Thrones of Season 4. But for this video, I'll just focus on what, to me, were the 10 low points of the season. So let's get started. Number 10, I'll Be Safe Here from Breaker of Chains.
You have to trust me. It's for the best.
Best for you.
Sam does the most idiotic thing he could possibly do. He leaves the woman he has a thing for in a dirty, disgusting rat hole full of whores and thieves in order to keep her safe. Not very smart. Number 9 is I Don't Care from Breaker of Chains.
You're a hateful woman. Why have the gods made me love a hateful woman?
An extremely controversial scene, which I don't want to get too much into, but will say that it's obvious the makers of the episode did not achieve what they set out to achieve with this scene and left many viewers upset and disturbed by the non-consensual nature of this scene. Although some people were more upset by this scene than I was because they saw it as such a huge monkey wrench into Jaime's so-called epic redemption, but I was never really on board with that whole thing anyway, so I wasn't that bothered by it. But regardless of any of that, the scene was an obvious attempt to shock and sensationalize by having them have sex over their dead son's corpse, which to me seemed a bit too forced and obvious. Number 8 is We'll Be Sisters from First of His Name.
We may be faced with an alarming number of weddings soon. I won't even know what to call you. Sister? Or mother?
The scene was a disappointment to me because ultimately it seemed really anticlimactic. In the previous episode, they set up this battle of wits between Cersei and Marjorie to win over Tywin's affections, but instead of following up on that, Cersei just completely gives in and Marjorie puts on this absurd display that no one in their right mind would buy. I did like how the whole scene took place in subtext, but it felt like a letdown from the big battle that I was expecting. Number 7 is An Unlikely Fight from The Children.
And that's what you're doing? Watching over her?
Aye, that's what I'm doing.
My main complaint about the Arya and Hound storyline this season is that it was all fan service that didn't really serve a higher purpose, and to me no moment was more guilty than this fight with Brienne and the Hound. The height of fan service, in my opinion. The unlikely chance encounter created more narrative problems than it solved by leaving people wondering why Arya didn't just go with Brienne, and why Brienne couldn't find Arya after the fight. The whole sequence felt really sloppy to me and was just thrown in because it would look cool. It reminds me of when we were kids, when we talked about how cool it would be to see Luke Skywalker fight Captain Kirk or something like that. While the fight did serve to mortally wound the Hound, which was needed for the narrative, it seemed like this could have been accomplished but in a much more better way, such as the price that was on the Hound's head, but instead they never actually followed up with that storyline. Number 6 is Back in the Brothel Again from Breaker of Chains.
Would you like to sit?
No, thank you.
Some wine?
No, thank you.
This scene felt totally unnecessary and a huge repeat of Oberyn's introduction scene in the brothel that was perfect on its own. This scene felt very repetitive because again we see Oberyn and his paramour engaging in bisexual activities, and then is interrupted by a Lannister, this time Tywin instead of Tyrion, who want to have a serious discussion with him. The scene gives us no new information, just beats a dead horse on things we already know. Number 5 is Home on the Range from Breaker of Chains.
Fair wages for fair work?
Fair wages for fair work.
If the Brienne fight scene was a scene I would point to as the height of fan service for Arya's storyline, this is a scene I would point to as the height of filler regarding her storyline. I found this scene to be the most boring and pointless of the whole season. It only serves the purpose to remind us of how big of a douche the Hound is, but that's something that they reinforce throughout the rest of the season. Number 4 is Smash the Beetles from The Mountain and the Viper.
I was curious. Why was he smashing all those beetles? What did he get out of it? First thing I did was ask him, Olsen, why are you smashing all those beetles? He gave me an answer. Smash the beetles! Smash them! Come, come, come.
This is a rare example of a poorly written Tyrion scene. I get what they were getting at with the Beetle speech, comparing to how meaningless death is, but it seemed to me a pretty poor metaphor, and almost I would describe it as very bad, amateur philosophy. But more importantly, I don't think it adds anything to the story at the moment. It also seems a very poor place to put it, right before this big fight with the Mountain and the Hound, and the Mountain and Oberon, which is highly anticipated scene. It seems to me there are much better things they could have done to lead into this fight, and if they did have to do it, it could have been much shorter. This scene seems to drag on for far too long. Number 3 is Kill Me from the Children.
Kill me. Kill me. Kill me.
So I'm sure by now you've noticed the theme of Arya and the Hound stuff on this list, and that's because, as I mentioned, I thought it was very poorly handled this season. This scene to me is one of the worst of their whole storyline because it renders all the time we spent with them meaningless. Let me specify that if this scene occurred at the start of the season where in fact it was placed in the books, I'd be fine with it. Say that when Arya and the Hound got into the fight at the end with Pulliver and the Lannister men, the Hound mortally wounded Arya, left him for dead, no problem. Makes perfect sense. But instead of it happening there, we spent all the season watching Arya and the Hound grow closer and form a bond. We see Arya caring for the Hound's wounds. We see the Hound starting to care for Arya to the point where he tells Brienne that he's taking care of her. And it would have made all the sense in the world for Arya to mercy kill him. It would even be a callback to an earlier scene when the Hound mercy kills the farmer. But for her to leave him suffering makes no sense at this point in the story. I heard the counter argument that he was on her list, so he gets what he gets. But the whole point of her list is that it's people that she wants to kill, not people she wants to torture or leave for dead, or more to the point, not kill. The list is for people she wants to kill. So for her to not kill him makes even less sense. Had she killed him, it would have served a double purpose of scratching a name off her list and honoring her mentor at the same time. What they did served no purpose whatsoever other than to alienate a fan favorite from audiences. Number 2 is the world's worst assassination attempt from Mockingbird.
This day's really not working out the way you planned. He on your little list?
He can't be. I don't know his name.
What's your name? Rouge.
Thank you.
So finishing up the Arya and the Hound material is this scene that seemed just poorly written and not well thought out. First of all, we've already seen Arya catch up to someone who was bothering her in season 2. To see it happen again to a character who was even less important seemed a bit repetitive and a bit much. I mean, 1 chance reunion, okay. 2, you're pushing it a bit. But more importantly, what the hell are these guys doing? They want to kill the Hound. So one dude goes up while the hound's back is turned, and instead of stabbing him in the back or chopping off his head, he tries to bite him in the neck, which of course the hound responds to by killing him. And the other dude just hangs back and does nothing while his friend does his dumbass move. And then he proceeds to conveniently feed Arya and the hound the much needed exposition about Joffrey's death and the price on the hound's head before just standing there and letting himself be killed by Arya. These people are so bad at killing, it's inconceivable that they could have survived this long. And number 1 is Smithers Release the Hound from The Laws of Gods and Men.
How fast can you run?
Make for the ship, now.
For your brother!
My brother's dead.
So at the end of season 3, we had this great speech from Theon Greyjoy's sister Yara, where she tells her father about how she's going to defy his orders and go on this badass mission to save her brother. And then 6 episodes later, we still got no follow-up to that. And then finally, they decide to follow up on that, and they started by having Yara give yet another great speech to her crew about how Theon is their prince, or everything they do to him. They do to you, and it gets them all riled up, and they get in there and they start kicking ass and taking names. But then Ramsay shows up and releases some dogs, and then they just go, and Yara goes as far as to say, "My brother's dead." What? I mean, I understand that Yara would be set over Theon biting her hand and refusing to be rescued, but it's the most obvious thing in the world that he's been tortured and is suffering mental damage. So why didn't she just knock him out and take him with them? That would have made much more sense, but instead they run away just because some dogs were released. I mean, attacking a well-armed castle, fine, but dogs, that's a bit too much. Also, the moment she says "my brother is dead" is the most anticlimactic moment in the show. It's almost comedic. After teasing us with 2 great speeches, she gives up just because some dogs were released. It was a bit ridiculous. Okay, so that's it for my 10 least favorite moments of Game of Thrones Season 4. You should check out my video for my top 20 favorite moments of Season 4, and there I get more of a positive aspect on what I think was most likely the best season of Game of Thrones. You should also check out my video review for Season 4 altogether, so I go into more detail about why I like Season 4. So yeah, the link to those videos will be in the description below, so you should check those out, and thanks for watching.